Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 43 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. Thank you again for joining us, or joining me, I guess, right now. As you can see, Mr. Hussong is AWOL, having problems with the new venture, and I don't think we'll be here for this show, so we'll see how much I can talk and see if I can fill an hour for you, but thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the video and the channel, and hit that notification bell, and you will be notified when we have new content. Today, I want to touch on a few things that we have going on here in New York. First, sad day here in the Syracuse. Syracuse Orange eliminated from the dance. No more madness here in March, so we will root on the rest of the teams here as they whittle it down to the Final Four, I think, through the next day or so here, and then have the championship weekend next weekend. Syracuse will not be participating. It was fun. It's always fun to get through the first weekend. Obviously, this is a team that, with a seed of 11, probably wasn't expected to win either game. Gave us a good extra week of fun basketball here, and maybe you guys all saw the biggest news of the meme world, at least for the last, I don't know, week or so. The cargo ship Evergreen has been freed from the Suez Canal. If you guys didn't see, there was this gigantic cargo ship stuck sideways blocking the Suez Canal, and like some ridiculous amounts of trade dollars being lost by the second. But that was freed this morning, I believe, or late last night, or whatever it works out, the time difference is there. But I did see it moving through the canal, so hallelujah. That meme is no longer in usefulness, but I guess we'll repurpose that at some point. And the favorite couple of the show here, both in the news, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Ghislaine Maxwell was denied bail for the third time. So thankfully, she is still behind bars, we think. Still no mugshot here. Still waiting for that. We'll see what happens. But the judge says no bail. So good for that. And then if you didn't see that Jeffrey Epstein's New York City mansion sold for $51 million, and that money immediately started being distributed, or I don't know about immediately, but at least I think is now being distributed to the victims. So $51 million for the biggest residential house in New York City, that he was given to for $1, we believe, from Lex Wexner, who's still walking this earth, free as a bird. So, so interesting there in the worst couple in the planet that we know of, anyway. And we talked about this last week, that there had been something like over 50 days at the time, no press conference from Joe Biden. Well, that ended. We had the President Biden gave us his first press conference. It was, I think he did okay, actually, for expectations. I think people thought he was ducking the show for 65 days, I think it was. There was some hesitation moments there where I thought maybe he was breaking down, but I guess he pulled it out. One bit of news that kind of snuck in there and nobody really talked about, but I guess we're not leaving Afghanistan anytime soon. Apparently that was something that has been talked about, I don't know, since he was vice president, but apparently that's not going to happen. So we got the first press conference. We'll see how that plays out forward here. Also right here in New York, you guys all excited? Have you downloaded the Excelsior Pass, your vaccine passport app yet, to your phone? So that when they need to show me your papers, you can just whip out your phone and show them your papers. This is the Excelsior Pass. If you guys don't know, we did a little bit of break this on maybe 2 episodes ago. This is the New York State's version of a vaccine passport, where you will need to have either, you can, I guess, upload a vaccine test or a vaccine that you have been vaccinated to this app, or you can upload a negative test somehow through this app, and that's way it can allow you to get into some events. I think this is Cuomo's idea of somehow trying to replicate the Bills game a little bit, but using this mobile pass. Obviously, I think the president has mentioned something about a national vaccine passport. Also not a good idea. Can't imagine this is going to gain too much traction, even unless they make it mandatory, and then I think there'll be somewhat of a revolt. I do believe there's actually a protest in Albany this week about the vaccine passport here and the Excelsior Pass. But anyway, for those of you who want it, you can get it. And, this may allow you to get into some events early on here that others without the vaccine pass are unable to attend. So hallelujah for New York State and its vaccine passport. So let's talk about a couple things. Speaking of New York State and Cuomo, did you guys see that apparently the newest, I don't know if this is the newest one because obviously I haven't paid attention to the news since I've been on the air, but apparently there's a scandal in the Cuomo administration every 3 hours. The latest one being that apparently Governor Cuomo had arranged his family members and top officials to be tested by top public health officials here in the state, even in the privacy of their own home, while nursing homes were not getting those tests, right? So they had this, let me pull up the article here. The Albany Times-Union, I believe, was one of the outlets that kind of broke this story here. So they have some people working on the inside or are familiar with the situation. I don't know about working on the inside still here, but I'm going to read a little bit from it here. High-level members of the State Department of Health were directed last year by Governor Cuomo and Health Commissioner Dr. Howard Zucker to conduct prioritized coronavirus testing on the governor's relatives as well as influential people with ties to the administration, according to 3 people with direct knowledge of the matter. So clearly they have some sources. They include his famous CNN host brother, Chris Cuomo, his mother, Matilda, and at least one of the sisters. And these were the tests were administered by in the reporting here by Dr. Eleanor Adams, an epidemiologist who graduated from Harvard Medical School, so very qualified to administer those tests at the direction of the Department of Health. So early on in this pandemic, I don't see dates here specifically, and maybe the dates have come to light here in another article. I don't see them here listed in this Times-Union article, but this appears early on in the pandemic when testing was scarce and really needed in facilities that were having issues, as we've talked about for months and weeks here, at nursing home facilities specifically, were looking for tests to better isolate and serve their patients. And all the while, our governor, while his Emmy Award-winning governor was basically lining up his family and moving them to the front of the line to make sure that they were tested before those people who were actually probably, in much more need of a test than Matilda. So, maybe the sister, maybe Matilda maybe needed the test. I think she's in her 80s. So, I don't know. I think this is kind of just being, I know that some of the, and it wasn't just his family too, like the executive director of the Port Authority, him and his wife, they got tested. The head of the MTA tested. So, and there were some state legislators and members of the media, and some of this stuff may have been at the risk of being precautious of possible exposures. But it seems as though this was more of a directed to kind of make sure that the family was safe here. Obviously, the administration spokespeople have come out and said this was not nefarious at all, that these were, basically trying to address potential exposures. And, this was just, standard operating procedure here and nothing nefarious. So I don't know. I think it's going to be added to the investigation, if you will. I mean, it doesn't look good. I don't think Chris Cuomo needed a prioritized test. I mean, I'm sure CNN could probably get him a prioritized test, and if that was the thing, or somebody else, right? Like, I don't think there was clearly a priority needed, and Chris Cuomo wasn't on it. So, I don't know. We'll see how this develops. But it's getting some traction a little bit here. And again, we can just add this to the list of other scandals and such that's going on. Obviously, with the sexual harassment allegations, the nursing home deaths, all of it. So, those investigations are ongoing. There's multiple investigations by the AG, by the assemblies. So obviously we'll keep you updated as we get those. But add this to the list. So the latest and greatest of the roll call of investigations or allegations into the Cuomo administration. So I don't know, but the big news I feel like in New York has kind of dominated the news for a while here. And I wish I had Mr. Hussong here because I don't really know some of his life experiences with the cannabis or any of this stuff here. So maybe I'll have to fill in the blanks a little bit when next time we meet here. Recreational weed for adult use will be legal sometime this week, we think, in New York State. I think they're going to vote on this as early as tomorrow, Tuesday. But the bill has been introduced. It was kind of leaked a little bit that there was a deal, and then it basically didn't happen for a few days, so people thought the deal was breaking down. But the deal is in place. The deal has been out. So I want to kind of go over that with you guys. This has been something that has been, in discussions here in New York State for a few years. Last year it was brought up. Cuomo tried to get it into the budget. That failed to get into the budget, and then they did not pass a standalone piece of legislation to legalize then. So it basically stood a year's time now, and here we are moving back to now we're 2021 now. We'll go through the bill here in a bit, but I think the general sense was that, hey, New York State is certain financially, and this is a way to generate some revenue for the state, which is probably the least attractive reason to legalize anything as revenue. I guess we'll take it where we can get it if you're in favor. But there are other reasons that probably should have been at the top of the list other than just revenue, and maybe the hurting of the state budget is the thing that put it over the edge. But so let's break a little bit of this down here. I'm going to pull up an article by Dan Clark. He kind of broke this down pretty good, so I want to give him a little bit of credit here. He is with NPR here, or it's listed on NPR, but I saw him on Twitter here. But let me pull up the article. New York State set to legalize marijuana. Vote could come Tuesday, which is tomorrow. Today is Monday. Says New York will legalize marijuana for adult recreational use after Democrats struck a deal on the issue Saturday, with a vote expected next week for the state legislature. This was the bill that was sponsored by Assembly Majority Leader Crystal Peoples-Stokes, the Democrat from Buffalo, and State Senator Liz Krueger, the Democrat from Manhattan. So those are the two sponsors of the bill, the Assembly and the Senate. So let's read through some of what this bill is going to offer New Yorkers. As you guys know, we do have medical marijuana already legal in New York State. No smoking of the plant, I believe, is still in effect. So basically, it's all edibles or concentrates, and you can either vape the drug or the plant or use it in a food-based product or drinkable. But there's no smoking, and obviously some of this is going to change here. So let's go through some of the. So right off the top, they're going to create an Office of the Cannabis Management, which sounds horrible to me, at the state level, and a cannabis control budget to promulgate regulations related to the drug. Cuomo would appoint 3 appointees to the board, including the chairperson, while the legislature would have 2. So there's going to be this board. Great, another layer of state bureaucracy put on top of a plant. And these 5 folks apparently here, are going to help us create regulations to keep us safe from the plant that no one has ever died from. Let's move on a little bit here. Set a 13% tax rate on retail sales of cannabis products. 9% of that would go to the state. 4% would go to the directed to the localities. Of that 4% directed to localities, counties would receive quarter of that revenue, while the municipality would receive the remainder. So it looks as though, and maybe I'm reading here, I had thought that the counties were going to be able to opt in, opt out for this program, and it looks like it's not going to be the counties. It's going to be the municipalities, so the towns and the cities, villages, whatnot, I'm not sure. And a quarter of that revenue would go to the county from the the sales tax for the locality. So I do believe that there's a period of time where these municipalities will be able to opt in or opt out. Let's keep moving on here with the article. So here's some of the the things that people were kind of really talking about. What was going to be in the meat of the bill here. So permit possession of 3 ounces of the drug and 24 grams of concentrate outside the home. So if you are outside of your home in your car, you're at any place where they have deemed, any municipality where they have deemed this to be legal, or they have opted in, you're allowed 3 ounces of cannabis and 24 grams of concentrate. So that's outside the home. Inside the home, 5 pounds. 5 pounds is allowed to be kept at home, but must be stored away from children. So if you have kids, you're going to have to figure out a way to lock that up, store it away. But 5 pounds in the home, 3 ounces outside the home. So those are some of the possession legalities there. I'm not sure what the penalties are for being over those amounts at any time. I'm not sure how you get the 5 pounds to your house if you can't have it someplace else first, unless you're just growing it within. We'll get to there. Redefine criminal penalties for possession. Right. So this was also some of the discussion of what was going to be in this bill, and maybe this was some of the last couple things that were going to be discussed as they pass this final piece of legislation here. So redefine criminal penalties for possession. Possessing more than 3 ounces of the drug grams. Oh, here we go. We get the penalties right here. Or drug grams of concentrate outside the home would constitute a misdemeanor charge. The most stringent charge would be a Class D felony for possession of more than 10 pounds of the drugs or concentrate products weighing more than 4 pounds. So there you have it. So here we go. I didn't even read through this whole part, or I missed this part anyway. So if you can be a Class D felony for possession of more than 10 pounds of the drug. 5 pounds is legal, okay, in your house. After that, there's penalties. Looks like some of them are misdemeanors, and then when you get to the 10 pounds, it's a Class D felony. Allow individuals to grow up to 6 marijuana plants at home. Half of them would have to be immature, and households would be capped at 12 plants. So I thought I read it was 3 plants per adult, which I guess this would equal out to 3 adult plants per home per adult in the home. So if you have 2 adults in the home, you can grow 6 mature plants and 6 immature plants. So you can obviously have your rotation, with households being capped at 12 plants. Authorize a controlled research study into methodologies and technologies that could detect when someone's driving while impaired by cannabis products. So this was, I think, the last obstacle for at least releasing the bill to the public, or at least that's what it was presented and reported on in the news. It seemed as though driving while impaired by cannabis was kind of like the one thing they wanted to be able to kind of to nail down here. So apparently there's a authorization within this bill that will study the methodologies and technologies that will be used for like a roadside test, I'm assuming. Let's keep going. Set aside funding for the local enforcement agencies to hire and train drug recognition experts who would be able to recognize when somebody's driving while impaired by the drug. So driving under the influence of marijuana would still be illegal, which it is right now. So I don't know if they're just keeping the current impairment penalties in place, and then they're going to use technology to try to further that when given a chance. It seems like that might be the case here. Give municipalities, excluding counties, the ability to opt out of allowing retail sales and state-approved consumption sites. The deadline to do this would be December 31st, 2021. So they have to the end of the year. So any one of these municipalities, so the city of Syracuse, they can say, okay, well, we're not going to do this here. I'm assuming it would be the same as the town of Cicero or the town of Clay or the town of Manlius or any of these. If they opt in, then they're eligible for that 4% sales tax on that revenue, and a quarter of that, so I guess 1%, would be going to the county, which would be here in Onondaga County. Expand the list of medical conditions to qualify for medical marijuana and provide some flexibility for practitioners to prescribe the drug for conditions that aren't specifically listed. Well, if it's allowed for recreational, I mean, people are going to get it one way or the other, so expanding these medical conditions seems like a no-brainer to me. Direct 40% of total state tax revenue from cannabis to a grant program for communities historically disproportionately impacted by prohibition. Another 40% would go toward the state schools, with the remainder set aside for drug treatment and education. So you got 40% going to a grant program. You got 40% going towards state schools, which the remainder, 20% here, would be set aside for drug treatment and education. All right. Automatically expunge or resentence individuals convicted of criminal charges related to marijuana that would be repealed under the legislation. So basically saying if you had a possession conviction, that would be expunged. If you had certain things that would no longer be illegal under this new piece of legislation, you would no longer have to be in jail serving penalty for something that is now legal. I did see they talk about resentencing people. So maybe if there's multiple crimes, multiple charges against this individual, where one or two of them may be marijuana related, they might be resentenced those, and obviously then, I'm assuming that time served would be allocated or appointed, and they would be able to change that sentence. So, and then last here on this list of bullet points here is allow the creation of on-site consumption sites, sort of how tasting rooms work with alcohol. So that's interesting too. So you could have, if you have boutique growers, I wonder if they will be allowed to have a sitting area where you can come in and try their different varieties, try their different strains, see what they like, and kind of like you do with tasting rooms, right? So you can go to kind of like a bourbon tasting room, you can have a beer tasting room, a wine tasting room, where you can go in, you can kind of sample each one of these products before you take home what you really like there. So that's from this article, which I thought was really good. Kind of broke down the legalization of marijuana here in New York State and the bill that has been introduced. It seems as though I didn't see this listed here, but I did see that. So for home grow, so we talked about how you can grow 3 plants per adult or 6 total of 12 plants in your home. That only can happen. You can only begin growing when the dispensaries are allowed to open. Unless you're a medical marijuana. But so if you're medical marijuana, you can begin growing immediately, I believe. As soon as the bill is passed, not immediately, but as soon as the bill is passed, you can begin growing your own plants there if you are a medical card carrier in New York State. If you are not, you must wait for the dispensaries to open, which could be upwards of 18 months. So if you're thinking about, tomorrow when they sign this bill to plant your seeds, be aware that that is technically not within the framework of this piece of this bill here, and that you would be in violation. I'm sure that somebody found out, they would come and not be happy about that and take your plants, I'm guessing. But so that's kind of what's going on in New York here, right? So we got this. This is kind of like been a long time coming. We're the 16th state, I believe, to recreational. We will be the 16th state if the bill passes. I think it will. I don't know. No, I think everybody else thinks it will. So we'll be the 16th state with recreational marijuana. I think this has kind of been long overdue. Again, I'm not really a big fan of the reasons why it was. I'd rather the hey, I'm an adult and I can do what I want to do in my own home with my own life, my own body here. Take is probably the better reason to legalize here. If you're not hurting anybody and if you're not causing any problems in the privacy of your own home, well, you can do what you want. So, all right. So obviously I've gone through my list of topics here. So now I want to kind of promote some stuff that we have going on here that I think is pretty exciting. So right after I end the show here, hopefully Mr. Hussong will be here for this. We have a couple guests coming back. We have one guest today, one guest tomorrow. Today's guests, senior fellow researcher at the American Institute for Economic Research, Phil Magnus. We had him back on in October to discuss lockdowns and their effectiveness and see how well they worked. So we're going to have him back on. We're going to have him back on to discuss if anything has changed. Has new data come in? Again, this was we talked to him in October, so we can kind of fast forward a few months here and see if we went through a whole lockdown 2.0 here across the country, including right here in New York State. And we'll be able to assess more data and see if the lockdowns are still working, not working, and to what degree they are working. But the reason I brought him back on is if you guys, he published a recent article. Let me pull up that article because it's awesome. But anyway, so it's called The Many Variants of Fauci's Mutating COVID Advice. And this was released on March 23rd, 2021. So I'm going to talk to Mr. Magnus about this article. He basically breaks down how Dr. Fauci is a man of the political moment. Whatever he needs in the moment, he is a way of narrating his responses to exactly what he needs at that time. So I think the article is worth discussing with Mr. Magnus. So we will have him on later this afternoon to talk about that and break down his take on Fauci's ever mutating COVID advice. And then also tomorrow, and again, I'm not sure exactly when these interviews will actually be posted for you guys to view, but this is when we're doing the interview. So Mr. Magnus is today. Mr. Bill Hannon will be coming back on the show. If you remember him, he is the health advisor or the senior health director for the Empire Center. And we're going to talk about his continued reporting on the Greater New York Hospital Association and their relationship. It's a lobbying firm for the hospitals here, and their relationship with our governor and how influential they are at getting basically pieces of legislation written on their behalf and introduced by the governor into the state legislature. So we're going to talk to Mr. Magnus and Mr. Hannon over here the next couple of days. I'm guessing I'll have both those interviews out and to you guys, full videos maybe by Thursday. And then what we'll do is, because we'll have Ben back for next week, and we'll break down some of the highlights from those interviews on next week's show for episode 44 here. So I'm really looking forward to both of those. I can't wait to talk to Mr. Magnus about Dr. Fauci. I don't think he's much of a fan, neither am I, so this should go well. And Mr. Hannon is obviously, I basically think they should name a road after Mr. Hannon someplace in Albany, just so that the governor's office should always be able to see his name and know that, just for his efforts. I mean, I don't agree with Mr. Hannon on everything, but his relentlessness at pursuing information from the state should be commended. And like I said, right now he is working on making sure we are all well aware how much influence and how much power the Greater New York Hospital Association has over New York politics right now, and I want to discuss that with Mr. Hannon. So with that, we're only at 30 minutes here, and I apologize for a short show, but this is how it is when you only have half the guests, right? You get half the talk time. We will be back next Monday. We will be back for episode 44. Again, we'll break down some of these interviews that we're going to do the next couple of days and cover all the things that are happening here in the great state of New York. So with that, I'm going to leave you here, leave you the rest of your lunch here to, I don't know, listen to music or do something else other than listen to my rambling voice here. So on that note, I want to thank you all for tuning in for episode 43. Be sure to check back here later in the week. Again, hit that notification bell if you haven't already done so, and then you'll get notified when I release those interviews here with Phil Magnus from the American Institute of Economic Research and Bill Hannon from the